Donald Trump was the subject of a second apparent assassination attempt at one of his golf courses in Florida on Sunday, the FBI said. A man was spotted aiming an AK-47 type rifle at Trump's West Palm Beach golf resort while concealed in shrubbery around 400 to 500 yards away from the politician when he was spotted by Secret Service agents who opened fire as he fled the scene. He was later stopped in a Nissan SUV by police and taken into custody in a neighbouring county, according to local sheriff Rick Bradshaw. Now, it's worth noting that no shots were fired from the suspect. But who is the suspect? Well, his name is Ryan Ruth, and similar to the first person to attempt an assassination attempt on Trump, his political allegiances aren't that clear-cut either. Meanwhile, records show Ruth registered as an unaffiliated voter in North Carolina in 2012, most recently voting in person during the state's Democratic primary in March 2024. Campaign finance records show Ruth has made 19 small political donations totaling around $140, which is £106, since 2019 to Act Blue, a political action committee that supports Democratic candidates. Although he appears to have supported the Democrats in recent years, it seems Ruth voted for Mr. Trump in the 2016 presidential election before changing his mind about him during his time in office. Ruth wrote in a social media post in June 2020, "While you were my choice in 2016, I and the world hoped that President Trump would be different and better than the candidate, but we are all greatly disappointed and it seems you are getting worse and devolving." But Ruth showed support for Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy as late as January. Unsurprisingly, Ruth has a history of running on the wrong side of the law. The Washington Post reports that public records show Ruth faced criminal charges over two separate incidents in 2002 for possession of a weapon of mass destruction, which can refer to a machine gun. He pleaded guilty to the first charge in April 2002, but no other details were publicly available, according to the newspaper. The News and Record reported that later that year, he also charged after barricading himself in a United Roofing building in Greensboro for 3 hours armed with a machine gun. Now, just like the first assassination attempt, there have been people on social media posting fake images trying to spread misinformation. This is just one of many examples where you can see it's obviously a fake profile, mostly made by probably conservatives to make him out to be left-wing. You know, it's got ACAB, LGBT, Dem supporter, anti-fascist, anti-Nazi, anti-MAGA. Now, Max, I want to get your initial thoughts on this. I mean, it looks like another assassination attempt has been made on Trump, two in the same election cycle. I mean, assassination attempts are incredibly rare, and Trump has faced two in the space of just a few months.
Yes, it's a really crazy season. You know, as you said, extremely rare, but Trump has faced two of them. What's interesting also about all of this is that the impact on the public has been minimal. You know, there was a time where, you know, an assassination attempt on a president was almost a guarantee that they would be reelected. But Trump is so out there, so strange, so weird, as people say. And he likes to use that term, as people say. It's not really having an impact. The first one had an impact for a few days, maybe even a week, and then the polls just went back to the way they were. And the same with this. This is probably, I'm thinking it's going to have an even less of an impact because there was, you know, Trump was not harmed in any way. But it is interesting about how, you know, we tend to think politics is very polarizing, and it is. But some of the people were, as you're talking about, the guy involved in this attempt is all over the place. So he's not somebody who you could say, well, this is clearly a Republican or this is clearly a Democrat. It's somebody who voted for Trump in 2016, who's not happy with what Trump did between 2016 and 2020. As you said, he also voted, or he backed a Republican, but also donated to the Democrats. So it's somebody who is either a little bit confused, or it's somebody who's just looking at different policies or different politicians. Say, I like that one, I'll send them a donation. We're not talking, I think it was $110 or something like that. So we're not talking about huge, you know, a mega donor here. We're just talking about a few small donations to different individuals, probably because he was having a few beers or something. Well, I like that. I'll send them a donation.
Yeah.
But it is serious about the threats that are to presidential candidates, and whether it's Trump or anyone else. I was very concerned where Elon Musk came out and he was saying, "Well, why hasn't Kamala Harris been?"
Yes, it was a tweet,
tar-"
wasn't it, that finally got deleted. I mean, he doubled down, didn't he? He tweeted it and said, "Oh, what's wrong? What an insane thing to do. It's so dangerous."
Yeah, he has a huge following, and he has a huge following of very crazy people who would be,
Mm.
who would take that as a call to action. But it's, I think after a few days, this is all going to die down, and the polls will return to the way they were before. But I'm really concerned about some of the other language that we're hearing from Donald Trump, like he's suggesting that immigrants are eating people's dogs and cats, eating their pets. It seems that started from somebody who was just having a bit of a joke or having a bit of a laugh, and then escalated. But it shows how quickly things like that can escalate. But as you pointed out also in your piece about how misinformation like that or other types of misinformation are really cutting through, and in the social media age, we have deep fakes, we have AI images, we have all sorts of weird stuff going out, and it's very difficult to challenge it and to correct it. So I think we're going to see a more polarized society after this election. It's not going to heal, unfortunately, because people are choosing their camps and they're saying, okay, I'm only going to surround myself with the media I agree with, and to hell with the other side.
And the person who made that Facebook post about the Haitian immigrants eating pets, I mean, she's come out and apologized, said this, I didn't mean to do this. I actually feel bad for the immigrants. A stupid thing to do, of course, but she's said, I'm upset this has been used by the Republican platform and Donald Trump to essentially start a pogrom, because there's been bomb threats now in Ohio or in Springfield. So it's incredibly dangerous. Now, you brought up misinformation, because I'm glad you did, because it is really important to talk about misinformation. Now, the first shooter on the first assassination attempt, right? He was a registered Republican, yet so many lies were spread about that person that he was a radical left and a Democrat. Obviously, this person had a history of mental illness. People forget these things and just want to think, oh, okay, it's just people who are radicalized. And when it comes to Twitter, because it's owned by Musk now, and the algorithms are in favor of the right, a lot of right-wing commentators have said, oh, it's the left are dangerous. But we're seeing the same thing here, where some are desperately trying to push this idea that the left are the violent ones. So there are people who actually want this person to be left-wing to match up with their beliefs, rather than being extremely concerned about dangerous people getting their hands on weapons. And it was striking, because after the first assassination attempts, Joe Biden said, we should ban the same weapon that was used, that was trying to kill Donald Trump. And the political right, the GOP, were like, oh, how dare Joe Biden use this assassination attempt for political point scoring. Well, it wasn't political point scoring. He was making a valid point about guns in America. And had that gun been banned, it's less likely that Trump would have faced an assassination attempt. And the right are muddying the waters. Anytime there's a school shooting, they've now decided, oh, they're all trans, they're black, or they're Antifa, which, to be honest, when you look at the statistics, they're typically white men. A lot of them are, on the political right. Doesn't mean that left can't do violence, but a lot of them are on the right. So I want to get your thoughts on that it's not just about these two assassination attempts, it's the wider misinformation at play here, which is making things incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And Elon Musk is a huge part of that.
But as you said, if somebody wants to come to their own conclusion, what they'll do is they'll find the evidence, they'll lead the evidence to their conclusion instead of following the evidence. So what they'll do is they'll look for, okay, did this guy pull something pro-Democrat sometime in the past? Okay, let's use that to say that this guy is a Democrat. But as it's extremely dangerous, and it's very difficult for ordinary people to, like, I've seen images online where, it's obviously something fake. It's obviously an AI image, but so many people buy into it. They're actually convinced that it's something real. And I don't know how we can counter that. It's very difficult. And it's all over the place. It's not just in the US. It's also in the UK. It's also in Europe. And really, maybe it's education. We need to be able to convince people, look, There are certain red flags when you see something like this. There's a red flag. You should be automatically on alert when you see something like this. Or if it's somebody on Twitter, you see a name with numbers is normally the one to go with, or it's an account that was just created, or is an account. I was actually confused. I was actually tricked into communicating with somebody who was pretending to be a journalist, and it was very easy to fall into that trap. Nothing came of it, but you know I'm a little bit more tech savvy or information savvy than your average elderly person is. So we can identify these things, but most people can't, and it's very difficult to educate the public on this.
Well, I mean, you talk about education there, and I think, I mean, when it comes to the biggest sort of supporters, the biggest, whether it's Trump supporters or whether it's those that push out this misinformation, I feel like education can't reach them. They're too far gone. But obviously, it's those that don't get that much involved in the political process and see a fake AI screenshot of, oh my God, it's an immigrant eating a cat. Or even if it's a real image, but the context has been completely changed. I mean, there's an image of a person of color, and he had, I think he had a roadkill in his hands. Now, the caption was, oh, Haitian immigrant has just killed a cat. What happened in reality is this person was just moving roadkill off the road, trying to clean up the streets. Things like that. And I mean, I agree with your sentiment here. I don't know how to combat it. We're doing what we can here and trying to provide an alternative view on politics. But to try and get these extreme conspiracy theories, I honestly don't know. And I've had this conversation about legacy media so many times. I'm happy that legacy media is dying and there's more independent media out there. But we've now got another fight on our hands. And the rise of social media, it's brought a lot of bad shit with it. And that is, extremely conspiratorial media, AI, all this sort of stuff. And the rise of misinformation, it's now more prevalent. So legacy media is dying, but what's replacing it isn't necessarily good.
Patreon.com/turnleftmedia. Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn Left.